I'm Joseph, Dietitian at DPV Health. We know that making healthy food choices and looking at food labelling can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. So I'm here today to break that down and help you make good choices for your families when doing your grocery shopping. Let's go. At the moment we've got great stone fruit in season. It's coming towards the end of summer, so they'll be nice and fresh. So I've got some frozen fruit here. These are really handy as well to keep in the freezer, and we can include them in things like smoothies, for example, as a really good snack option, especially for kids. Keep in mind having some of these in the freezer ready to go. We've got some pre-packaged stuff here, and we've always got that as an option when we're short on time. So let's have a look at that. We've got some options here. So we've got some cut up roasting veggies. We've got some zucchini noodles, cauliflower rice, so things that we can add in to meals that we've already been making just to spruce them up a bit and get some extra veg in, okay? We've got something like this pre-prepared salad here. That might be a good option when we're looking for something quickly to grab for lunch. And you could even think about adding a can of tuna just to bulk it up a bit, but these are good options. Here we've got some herbs and spices. These are really good options to use to flavour our food instead of using salt, whether it's chili or herbs, even things like lemon juice and lime juice as well. Keep in mind those to flavour our food. When it comes to frozen veg, we know that they're a really healthy option. They can also be really convenient for us as well, and sometimes a lot cheaper too. So it pays to have a look at frozen veg, have a look at our pricing on it. We've got some options here, for example, where we've got chopped onions. So if you're short on time, that might be a good option as well. So looking at some pre-prepared things where we don't have to do as much work. And then we've got further down some mixed veg as well. When it comes to red meat, it's something that we want to include in our diet, up to 1 or 2 times a week. We know that red meat being a little bit higher in saturated fat can have adverse health effects. So we do want to limit it. As you can see here, just in terms of the mince, so the regular mince, you can tell it's got a little bit more fat and it is lighter in colour compared to the extra lean. Where possible, we do want to go for the leanest red meat that we can. We've got chicken here. That's something where we can, we want to take the skin off the chicken, and that way there will be consuming less of the saturated fat, which isn't so good for us. Another thing, where we can look to go for the leanest cut of chicken. So that'd be using more chicken breasts rather than chicken thigh. We've got fish here. That's something that we do want to be including more of in our diet, looking for that 2 or more times a week at least. And the type of fat that's in fish is actually really good for us and protective for our heart health. When it comes to fish, tin fish, so things like tuna or tin salmon, great options and much more budget friendly for us. So we can still include them a couple of times a week. They're much more budget friendly options for us and very portable as well. So we can bring them on the go, chuck them in the bag or the school bag, school lunchbox, great options. I'm here in front of the deli counter, and these types of foods we do want to limit. We know that they're higher in saturated fat and higher in salt. Those types of processed meats, things like bacon, salami, sausages, we do want to keep them just as on occasion. We're here with the plant proteins, so the alternative type of proteins, things like soy and tempeh. And these are really healthy things to include. We've got our falafels, we've got our tofu here. This is a firm one, so this might be good for a stir fry. These are all really healthy things to include during the week. I've got some white bread, some multigrain bread and some wholemeal bread. And we're just wanting to compare the per 100 grams on the nutrition labels and to see the difference in fibre content. Let's have a look. White bread, 3.1 grams of fibre per 100 grams. We've got multigrain, 5.4 grams of fibre per 100 grams, and then the wholemeal, 6.2 grams of fibre per 100 grams. So we can see the difference just in the level of processing. So always where we can, going for the wholemeal stuff. One thing that we do need to be mindful of when it comes to bread is looking at sodium. We do want to limit the amount of sodium or salt in our diet. And we know that when we're looking at the nutrition information panel, we do want to keep it less than 400 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams. So it pays to look at your labels and try and find the one with the lowest sodium. I'm here in the cereal aisle. Oats are always a good choice for us. Contain a high amount of fibre, which is really good for our gut. keep us nice and full, give us long-lasting energy throughout the day. We do want to look at like pricing, so we can see here that the home brand version is far cheaper than some of the name brands, and in terms of taste or quality there really isn't much of a difference. So always a good idea to look at home brands when we're thinking of our budget. When it comes to other cereals, we know that some of these ones here that are really high in sugar, which when it comes to looking after your kids and giving them the energy that they need throughout the day aren't going to be as great a choice. When we're looking at things like Wheat Bix, things like rolled oats that I talked about earlier, they're really good choices. Nowadays we know that a lot of supermarkets have a cultural aisle where we can find a lot of things like dried lentils, for example, and beans, spices, for example, much better priced. And when it comes to cheese, we do, where we can, want to look for a light or reduced fat version. So that means that we're taking in less saturated fat, which is always a good thing. When it comes to soft cheese, really good option, things like ricotta or cottage cheese. They're really naturally low in saturated fat, which is a great option. You include them on your breakfast, on your toast, include them in desserts as well. So they're very versatile and very healthy. When it comes to yogurt, try and look for something like a Greek style yogurt, a plain yogurt, and that way there we can then add our own flavourings to it. So it might be some fresh fruit or some nuts or even a bit of a drizzle of honey, and that way there we can control how much added sugar we put into it rather than something like a flavoured yogurt that might have a fair amount of sugar in it. Look for something plain like this and then flavour it ourselves as the best option. And we know that something like this sort of a size, we're going to be saving money rather than the small packets. So where we can, look for the bigger sizing, and we're going to get better bang for buck. So when it comes to things like coconut milk or coconut cream, we do want to try and opt for coconut milk where we can, just less saturated fat. But another handy tip is including this. So this is evaporated milk, so light and creamy. We can include that as a substitute for coconut cream. It gives us the same sort of flavour and texture in our meal, but comes in much less saturated fat. Great option for the school lunchbox. We've got some popcorn here, so no added salt or flavourings or anything like that. But they're a really good alternative to things like chips, for example. When we look at pricing, we can see here the home brand is about 4 times less expensive than some of the name brands. So keep in mind that we're looking where we can to make good budget choices as well. Going for the home brand can help us out in that way. So we've got our diced fruit here. We can see here this one's in juice, which is a much better option than something like this that's in syrup. So where we can, we want to look for the fruit in its own natural juice rather than the added sugar of the syrup. As you would have noticed from the tour, we stuck mostly to the outside aisles, the freshest food found around there, so that's where we want to spend the majority of our time. We know that the middle aisles contain some snack foods, for example, so they're still healthy to include every now and then, but just be mindful that we want to spend the majority of our time around fruit and veg, lean meat and fish, things like eggs and low-fat dairy. Just some other general tips. We know that we're more inclined to make poorer choices when we come to the supermarket on an empty stomach, so just keep that in mind. Try and write a list and stick to it as best as we can. So thanks for joining me. I hope you've learned something, and if you'd like to know more or if you'd like any support from a dietitian, please get in touch with DPV Health. Thank you.